All right, welcome everyone to the first episode of Morgue Video. I'm your host, John Sorrell. I'm here with Thomas Sipes, my co-host, and today we are joined with Scott Taysom of Cloak. How you doing, Scott?
I'm good. How about you guys?
We're doing great, man.
Awesome.
How you doing, Thomas?
Doing good, man. Happy to be here.
Oh yeah. So Scott, we'll just get straight into it, man. You just released Black Flame Eternal. That's the new record.
Yeah, about a month and a half ago now. So it's been doing well from what I can see, well received, which was nice to see.
Absolutely, man. Everyone that I've talked to and everyone that's listened to it, they fucking love it. I mean, for album number 3, I feel like you hit that how the gods kill vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm obviously huge.
Yeah, I see that.
And so, the third record is super important. I've talked about in many interviews, and yeah, exactly how the gods kill is, arguably their pinnacle as a band. Like, even if it's not everyone's favorite, I think you could argue that and, Master of Puppets and Rain of Blood and Number of the Beast and Covenant from Morbid Angel, albums like that are often a band's kind of peak, or at least where they find themselves. And I think it could be argued that, we hit that same stride on this third album. So that's good to hear for sure. And a great comparison for one of our favorite bands.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've had it on repeat for the better part of a month.
Cool.
And every day listening to it and just soaking it in. And just from beginning to end, it's just an experience, That's the best way I can describe it.
That's good to hear. Yeah. I mean, we try to make most of our albums a journey, and we're pretty selective about the track listing. And, every story, every movie, every album should start with a strong beginning and a strong end. So we put a lot of emphasis on how we want the album to start and how we want it to end. And so that's cool to hear.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. So you guys are about to hit Mexico.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Puerto Rico on the 5th of August, and then Mexico a week after. 5 dates.
Yeah. So is this your first time over there, or?
Yeah. I've been there once before when I was younger, but this is our first tour over there. So it should be interesting.
Yeah. Awesome. And then back to the States after that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Doing a pretty lengthy tour, end of summer into fall, basically end of August into early October. So that should be good, and it should be long, and basically hitting everywhere in the States. Mostly, there's a couple places, like we're not hitting Northern California, which is kind of strange, but just something with booking probably. But yeah, most of the States and a lot of Canada that we haven't hit before, a lot of Western Canada, and then even kind of Western middle Canada, which will be cool.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. You excited about it?
Yeah, we are. It's always a bit stressful kind of getting everything, because we deal a lot with printing our own shirts and getting a lot of the things organized with the van, the trailer, and getting all that set up. So we got a lot to do, but yeah, I think it'll be good, especially promoting a new album. UADA is going to have a new album as well, so it'll be kind of a dual album release tour as well.
Awesome. Yeah. I caught the two of you together here in Memphis. What was it? 2019, I want to say. It was right after the second album released.
Awesome. Yeah. What tour was that with? Was that like April of 2019? Maybe?
I want to say so. Yeah, it was around that time. I remember it was spring, summer.
Are you talking about? Was it the 1349 tour?
Maybe it was. Was that what it was, Thomas?
It was. Yeah.
So that would have been November 2019.
Okay.
But you're actually in luck, because if you're free this night, it's not announced yet, but it probably will be by the time this podcast comes on. We're doing a routing show to get out to where that tour starts, and we're going to be hitting Memphis. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just with Cloak. So free. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear, man. I was going to ask you, any chance?
Yeah. Yeah, the tour starts in Denver, so we're obviously from Atlanta. We have to do a couple dates out there, but yeah, just got booked at Growlers on, I think, August 27th. So
sick.
Yeah, hopefully, it'll be announced soon, but we'll we'll do
Right.
a soft announcement on the podcast.
Cool, man. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys play again. You guys have quite the presence live.
Oh, thanks.
You have that traditional metal band feel about you.
For sure.
And it's definitely entertaining. It was a really good show.
Yeah, I would say that's one of my favorite things about Cloak is that it's not just a black metal band or a death metal band or a thrash band. It's a real metal band with like a fuck you rock and roll attitude. I love that. And is that like a conscious decision to be that way, or is that just what comes naturally? And it shows through the music as well.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's in our blood to do that, and we just really want to honor, even though we are a modern metal band, we really want to honor metal and just rock and roll and even punk tradition. All rock and roll should be about rebellion, and
Absolutely.
especially a genre like black or death metal or extreme metal or thrash metal. And any extreme form of music should be about rebellion if it's in the rock and roll context. And so I think it's a conscious decision, but it's also just who we are and how we want to present ourselves. But I think honoring metal tradition and even just the way we look on stage, the way we perform on stage, the way the stage is set up, the way it comes across live and on record, I think is extremely important to us. So I'm glad it at least, shines through to, people such as yourselves and, anyone else that may see us live. I think that's, hopefully that's something that makes us stand out in more of a modern metal world where sometimes those aspects are forgotten, sadly. So I think we really just want to honor those traditions, but also stay somewhat, we know that we're a modern band basically, but it's okay to not try to sound old. We don't want to sound vintage or anything like that. We understand we're a modern band that's honoring metal tradition, like I said.
Right.
Yeah, I think you do a great job of actually honoring those traditions while pushing the envelope creatively,
For sure.
especially on the newest album. I've noticed that the compositions especially have become a lot more layered and just a lot more interesting. Not that the last albums weren't, but maybe more fully developed ideas.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly more layered production wise, vocal wise. The solos are maybe more thought out on this one. So yeah, I agree.
Nice. Yeah, one thing I would point out, the song "Eye of the Abyss." There's a part where there's this huge guitar solo. Do you do the solos, by the way? Mostly there's a split between you.
Me and Max split them. I actually do the one on that.
Okay, yeah, I love that solo.
Thanks, man.
Just saying. And then it kind of fades into this bass part, just bass, and then the drums come in, and then it kind of explodes back into this, pummeling but atmospheric black metal part. And that's the kind of thing that I'm seeing on this album that maybe was lacking from the last ones. Just that kind of like up and down. It's like a real journey.
Cool, thanks, man. Yeah, that part is, we specifically referenced The Cure for the bass tone, surprisingly, because it's a weird bass build up right there. We wanted it kind of like chorusy, reverby. And then, the solo and the song, and the whole song in general, we always said is like our version of a Metallica Black Album song,
Sure.
which we weren't really aiming for, but at the end we were saying, man, that solo sounds like on the Black Album or something. It's got more of a grooving pace throughout the whole song, and it's almost like doom elements mixed with that Black Album vibe. It's weird. It's a different song for sure. So I not many people have pointed that song out, but I've always really liked that one on the album. So I'm glad that one caught your ear.
Absolutely, yeah. As a musician myself, I've definitely noticed the composition of that and the evolution that's taking place, in that song specifically.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Right on. Go ahead.
I know you have like early punk influences. I've read or heard that in other interviews.
Yeah, I grew up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I grew up playing in punk bands throughout my middle school, high school years, and part of my 20s. So definitely that may or may not shine through, but I think the attitude is always sort of there with that hardcore punk element.
Yeah, I agree. It probably doesn't shine through in the music stylistically, but I think it does in your performance.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Much like, you know, referencing Danzig again, much like him coming from the Misfits and having, you know, Sam Hain behind him and then going into Danzig. I mean, the Danzig performances were arguably some of the most energetic of that period. You know, he was going crazy on stage, and that's always been really influential for us.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll pass it back to John in a minute, but I got one more question about the new album. I know that it was kind of delayed because of COVID, and you had this material ready. I don't know the exact circumstances. How much of it was recorded and ready to go and was just delayed because of the circumstances?
Yeah,
It's
so
frustrating having to wait when you know what you have and you just can't put it out.
yeah, it's super frustrating. That's honestly the worst part is waiting. But I think it coming out in 2023, I think it was a good time for it to come out, honestly, because everything's kind of opened back up now. We can do what we want with it. But yeah, this was finished well over a year ago. We finished recording it in February of 22, and then the mixing process took a while, and then the mastering and all that. So it was done by summer of last year, about a year ago. So we had to sit on it, you know, for nearly 8 or 9 months, basically. And the pressing took a long time. The pressing plants were backed up, and they got a little more freed up as we were kind of submitting our stuff. So we actually got the vinyl a month early, so it realistically could have came out in April, but yeah, it came out in May, right around the time we were doing a couple tour or festival slots and some, you know, mini tours around that. So it came out at a good time, I think.
I think so too. The reception's been really good, and plus people are back to work, so they have money to buy records now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the vinyl prices, unfortunately, are extremely expensive now. I'm honestly not very happy with how much things cost now with a lot of that. You know, again, coming from a punk background, I don't like charging that much for vinyl, to be honest. But
Sure. Yeah.
it is
I think
what it
most creative people would love to just be able to give their stuff away for free if they could.
is. Yeah. So, you know, the pricing isn't up to us, unfortunately. But
Right. Well, I'm hogging all the airtime, John. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hey, so Scott, I was reading somewhere that the goal of the music with Cloak is spiritual liberation. That's you know, that's your main goal.
Personally speaking, yeah. You know, it's an outlet for how we view life and death and spirituality and everything in between. So taking a rebellious concept on a spiritual level is, you know, it's very personal. It's something that's not just a societal rebellion. It's you know, it's liberating the spirit and going to places that you need to go to find yourself in that spiritual realm. So again, all rock and roll is based in rebellion, but you know, black metal is based in more of a spiritual concept of rebellion. So yeah, I think it definitely is something that I think any band in this genre should aim for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah. Now, can I ask you the themes that you deal with in your music? You know, does this come from deep within? I mean, or were you brought up in a religious background as a kid, or I mean, is just something that you were drawn to at a certain point in your life?
A bit of both. I think, you know, coming from the South, it is a bit more of the Bible Belt, but I never had a strict religious upbringing. We went to Sunday school and occasionally church and the things that you're kind of supposed to do.
Right.
Nothing was ever really forced upon me. You know, my household was pretty free, not extremely strict, but also, you know, we were taught, you know, we were raised right and taught with certain morals and you know, an upbringing that I appreciate. But no, I think you're kind of born into this rebellious mindset or a mindset that questions things.
Yes.
You know, the rebel isn't made, it's born. So I think you know, you guys could probably relate to that. coming from the South as well. If that's, I'm not sure if that's where you're from, but you're
Yes, well, I am.
Okay. Yeah. So I think, back then things were different. Now political rebellion is cool. Societal rebellion is cool, and with the whole culture around us, the liberal culture. Back then it wasn't cool. This was post 9/11. It was very, very patriotic, and playing in my background in a punk band, saying fuck the government, fuck the war, and fuck George Bush was not a popular thing to say.
Right.
So, just things like that, forming my youthful mind was an important process to go through. Even if looking back now, it's funny. I was like, damn, I was so young. Maybe I wonder, if what I was saying was valid, and I think some of it is, but it's a process you need to go through to have these, just to have these things that form your path in life, and questioning religion, questioning government, questioning authority, in thoughtful ways though. Now being a spiritual person now, and coming from more of a atheistic background as a teenager, I kind of see where that shifted, and the link maybe between them, and maybe I was always looking at things spiritually, but I just was trapped in that way of thinking that I was an atheist. But now, I'm not an atheist, and I think there is a lot to be felt and looked at differently. So, these spiritual concepts and this kind of realm of the other is all around us, and you just have to be tapped into that. But that's sort of a long-winded answer of, there's different processes you have to go through to kind of get to kind of form who you are as a person, as an adult. And it's kind of interesting to look back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that answer. And I think at some point, as you mature, you do develop your own perspective and your own path, regardless of your upbringing. Especially for someone like you strike me as obviously an individualistic person who, I believe that people either have that spark of the black flame in them already, and if you don't, you're more or less fucked. But you seem like you do. So, and that is reflected in your lyrics and in your music as well, especially a song from Burning Dawn called "A Voice in the Night." I feel like the lyrics to that kind of explain your philosophy pretty well.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you know what I mean when I reference the black flame. It's the spark inside of you that you have to ignite to have spiritual awakening, or something called gnosis.
Right.
And so, someone like you knows what I'm talking about, and that, that thing is eternal, the other, or the void, the realm that is not just what we see. So the spiritual realm, basically. But yeah, it's something that, I guess a person is born with, or a person through certain process can ignite.
I'd agree with that. Yeah. And people can be led to that point, but only so far if they don't have that natural inclination to
right.
bridge that chasm,
Because it's, true individualism and true freedom and true, a true mindset of not following is often scary. It's often a very lonely place for a lot of people. And if you're not willing to venture into those places and those depths and that darkness, that unknown, then it's not going to work out for you. And it can often lead to, just from more of a humanistic standpoint, depression, violent thoughts, different destructive thoughts. And but then again, you have to kind of go through a destructive phase to get to that phase of enlightenment. And I've certainly been through that, and through darker mental times, especially at the beginning of Cloak. That was a weird period of transition in my life. But that's the phase you have to go through, the death and rebirth of the self.
Definitely. It's like an alchemical spiritual transmutation. You have to reduce yourself to the Negredo in order to build from that. And most people don't really have the humility to do that. They spend their whole lives running from that darkness.
Exactly. And that's a word I was actually, the Negredo, that the process of what you just mentioned is something I was actually going to say. So,
right.
I'm glad you can relate to those things.
Right. I haven't seen this really come up in depth in a lot of the interviews that you've done. So I like that, we can tap into that and maybe show a deeper side of Cloak's music and your ideas.
Thanks,
I'm also curious about, you write all the lyrics, right?
Yes.
Right. So what are your main writing inspirations? Like, do you have any authors that you like, poets? Like, for me, I'm a huge fan of William Blake. I draw a lot of inspiration from his ideas. Do you have anything like that informs your style or the ideas you write about?
I wish I could say I did. Not really. It's sort of formed just through how I want to communicate it. There are certain lyrics that I like more than others. It's just kind of things that come to me. And of course, the language of metal lyrics has inspired me, of course. The language of certain occult writings. And right now I just got a book by Richard Gavin called The Benighted Path that I'm really excited to get into. I'm sure that'll be very influential for me. And it has a lot to do with what we kind of just talked about, and that kind of night side spiritual focus. But man, and not to be honest, like no one in particular. It's sort of more of an internal thing.
Well, that's perfectly fine. That's actually even more impressive because there are a lot of people out there who write lyrics that are more or less just stolen from Kenneth Grant books.
Yeah. Night Side of Eden and books like that.
Right.
Which I was trying to track down recently. But I don't want to regurgitate much, and I don't want to just write out names of different esoteric writings or names of different demons and things like that. That never really interested me.
Right.
Yeah, I want to kind of have it come from deep within and really kind of have it something to where people can hopefully relate to, and not just be a bunch of mumbo jumbo, although a lot of it is more arcane and more metaphorical at times or more esoteric at times. But then there's also a song like With Fury and Allegiance could be both. It's pretty direct, but certain lines mean different things that people might not pick up on. But
Sure.
That's kind of our most kind of straightforward, almost punk lyric.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of your approach to delivering your message is, maybe part conscious, part controlled by you, but the other part is you're just acting as a catalyst for the void or whatever you want to call it, letting it flow through you, through your voice.
Yeah, exactly. Some nights, some days, things come to you more naturally, and that's something you should look at as a gift for sure.
Absolutely.
That isn't directly from you. The subconscious, something kind of coming in through the subconscious, or through, something could come in during sleep in a dream, or when you're out in nature, and you got to write those things down immediately.
Yeah. I found that a lot of the best artists of all time don't take full credit for their work.
Yeah. I think art is always something that comes from, the other or someplace else, whether that's the subconscious or something more divine in the world, or that other realm that isn't really tangible.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Awesome.
So do you have any ideas going into what would be the next Cloak album? I mean, I know this one just came out, but as an artist myself, I'm always thinking forward of what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do in the future. Is that the same with you?
Yes. I like to let an album breathe a little bit. I get inspired where I'm like, I gotta go. Like, we just put an album out. We got this, or we're waiting to put this album out. We have all these months. And the end of last year, I was starting to demo some ideas. I think there's a couple that might live to see the next record, but some I went back on recently. I was like, it's just probably not gonna work. But it's art doesn't work that way where you can really force it. I could potentially write a song. I have enough time to where I could be writing a song every day, or at least an idea every day. But if you're not inspired, then it's not really worth it.
Right.
I want to try to do a couple tours under this record before we really get back into the space and flesh out some ideas that I have. But I could see us doing that probably winter of this year, like really getting back and trying to come up with a song or two, maybe by the end of this year, and then seeing where it goes from there after we do some of this touring.
Yeah, I hear you.
Do you enjoy the touring process? Do you enjoy the whole, I guess, just the necessary kind of business sides of being a band, or would you say that the creative side is really where you shine and where you feel fulfilled? Do you think you would do more like create? You'd be more prolific if you didn't have to do all the other stuff.
No, I think that stuff kind of in turn inspires the creative side, but every aspect of touring I don't like sitting in a van every day. You know, I don't like being in that monotonous routine. But I do like seeing, you know, obviously performing, seeing the response at the ground level, and seeing, you know, what inspires people to maybe come to the merch table that hadn't heard of us before, and if we've really won over fans and made new fans. But then again, I like the creative process. You know, there's pros and cons of all that. Sitting in a studio every day isn't the best. It gets monotonous as well, and trying to flesh out ideas in the practice space can get very frustrating, or sitting alone and trying to write demos is frustrating. But there's also magical moments of everything. There's magical moments on tour when you're performing mostly. You know, when you come up with a song in the space that really clicks, or if you're in the studio and you really nail a part. So there's pros and cons of it all. Nothing is all glorious all the time. That's for sure. There's definitely, you know, touring is a grind, especially, you know, we're about to be out for 5.5 weeks. That's the longest I've ever been out. So it's a grind. You're not eating, you know, properly all the time or sleeping properly. You're not getting your workouts in. You're not, you know, your voice is shredded, your body is hurting, but that's just part of it. You know, you gotta be in shape to do those things, and make sure that you're prepared to do it. And then it's not for everyone.
Absolutely. I know early on, you know, when you were first starting out, you took guitar lessons. Did you ever take vocal lessons? Because, well, with this newest album, I've definitely noticed an increase, I guess, in just the power and the delivery of your vocals, and also slightly more nuanced vocal patterns as well. Is there anything that you do, any kind of ritual or something that you do to maintain your throat on the road? And also, did you ever take vocal lessons?
So no vocal lessons. My voice has really developed differently over time. If you trace back to my old bands, it's different on a lot of records. It's even, to me, it's different on every Cloak record. It has kind of found its way more on this one, especially the way we recorded it as well. But yeah, I messed more with like clean singing on this one. And that was just me trying to figure it out on my own. You know, I'm not the best singer in the world, so it's pretty difficult. Clean singing is very difficult. I have a lot of respect for bands that are all clean singing, like a Paradise Lost or something like that. It's extremely hard to hit the notes, especially when you can't really hear yourself on stage. You know, we're not using in-ear monitors or anything like that, and most monitors at the venues we play are pretty shitty. You know, or maybe the monitors aren't shitty, but where I'm standing in the position with the center monitors and everything coming to my side, it's extremely hard to hear. But no, I think I've just honed it in over time. But yes, I do more vocal warm-ups, just things on YouTube to help kind of warm up the voice. I think it's definitely important, and I can tell a difference when I do it. I have noticed with age, though, my recovery time isn't as good. You know, when we start out on a tour, I can tell I'm pretty fried like the first couple of days, and then you get in sort of that groove where your voice is more conditioned. It's like a muscle. You know, when you first start a new workout routine, you're going to be really sore. Or if you start running, you're going to be really sore. But then the more you do it, you get accustomed to it. So it's the same thing. But yeah, I find vocal warm-ups to be extremely important, and I started to do them before I recorded on the record as well.
I'd agree with that. Vocal warm-ups probably are the universal thing that everyone should do. But if you ask different people, they're all going to tell you, like Raven from 1349, he does Jägermeister, right? And
yeah, I noticed that.
Phil Anselmo just says smoke cigarettes. Like, that's terrible advice, but if it works for him, okay.
Yeah, damn. I guess to make it more gurgly or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a weird one. Yeah, I noticed the Jägermeister. yeah, I guess that was for his voice. But I also noticed him when we were touring doing some kind of like throat warm up things, like throat singing. So,
Okay.
which I actually took to use on my own. It was actually pretty helpful.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure you pick up a lot of things like that touring with bands like on that level that have been doing it for such a long time, you know.
Yeah, honestly, it definitely, you know, when we went out, you know, originally our pedal boards were shit. Like our setup was like, we were trying, you know, we were pretty green on a lot of, like picking up on a lot of those things, like to make it a professional show. But Chemist was a band that we toured with that really helped me kind of like redesign my pedal board. And, you know, we're not like a huge pedal band, but I do have some. And Ben from Chemist was really, really nice to show me like, just kind of things you can do to make things easier, like snake wrap a cable so you have one cable instead of three. Just things like that that you pick up on when you tour is extremely important to do, and it's you know, you can use it to your advantage. And mostly everyone we tour with is cool, and they'll kind of give you tips. The one thing I've picked up on is or that I've learned is to just make setup as easy as possible, because we're typically, you know, not headlining, and we're doing smaller stages. So there's a lot of changeover mishaps that can happen, and you don't want your set time to be affected by that. So you really need to try to hopefully backline with all the other bands, you know, keep the same amps up there, and just make things as simple as possible while still making it your own show. That's what I've learned is the best way to make it the least stressful as possible when you're getting on and off stage.
Definitely. And that should be a priority if you're having to do it every night. So
For sure.
you got to consider that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm surprised you haven't adopted the in-ear monitor thing, because it seems like everybody's doing that, but it might actually take away from your performance, you know, playing to a click. I don't know if Cloak would really suit that kind of mechanical performance.
Yeah, we don't play to a click. We've considered it. We have before with one guy who was filling in on drums for us on just a short tour. But yeah, we go back and forth with that, because we do like the natural feel of things, but often when you have that adrenaline running, you tend to play fast. So we go back and forth with the idea, but I kind of like more of that dangerous, wild element to where you feel out the parts, and sometimes you play faster, and it could sound, you know, a lot more energetic and pretty cool live. But you don't want to lose the groove either, because we are a groove heavy band. You know, we're not extremely fast all the time. So yeah, maybe one day we will, but you know, so we could have some kind of samples running in the background, because there are a lot of little like orchestra parts on the record that could be cool to incorporate live. But then again, like a more kind of stripped down sound live is what suits us right now.
Right. And I also think that this kind of goes back to what we were talking about. Like if you're playing to a click, you're kind of imposing the human element on that energy that emanates through you. You want to be able to follow that fire as it leads you through the performance, and you can't really do that if you have all these restrictions in place.
Yeah, there's something about a click where I always feel like we're playing slow, even though on the record it works, but then live when we play it feels like really restricting. And maybe that's just a matter of speeding up the click a little bit live than what it is on the record. But yeah, there's just something too restricting about it. But yeah, who knows? It's something we've talked about a lot, and we may try to toy with it in the future. But again, for a band like us that needs to have quick setups and quick teardowns, it's just another piece of technology that you got to set up, and another thing that could possibly fail on stage, which,
Very true.
you know, we already have enough of those with technical failures, like every band does. So you want to just try to avoid that. And we have a pretty extensive stage setup as well. You know, there's a lot of banners and candles and backdrops, and like we're doing all that. We don't have any stage hands. So that's another, you know, that stuff is almost more important to me than having a click track to have that vibe of the live performance. So that's another thing we got to set up, and just another stressful thing that we have to add to that. But I think it's worth it in the end.
Absolutely.
I agree, and I'd say, it's, you know what's best for your show. So don't let anybody tell you, oh, you have to do this. It's
right.
Yeah,
for sure. And you often see bands that do play to clicks. You know, most do now, and sometimes it just can be a bit sterile, and like you it's like you almost know that they're just kind of playing to a computer every night, and there's no really like ebb and flow or change up of it. So again, it's something we may consider, but not sure right now.
Sure.
So, Scott, one thing that I always loved about bands growing up were live performance or music video VHS releases or DVD releases. Danzig had a handful of videos that came out that were great. As a band, and have you put any thought into maybe doing that in the future? Any type of release?
We've talked about it. Yeah, because again, I own those 2 Danzig VHSs. I think most of us do in the band. We love those. Yeah, we've talked about doing a little, like film some stuff on the road, at least release it on YouTube, like tour diaries, like mini tour docs or something like that. We've talked about doing something that is directly inspired by, the Danzig, the 2 VHSs that he had, and maybe even doing a VHS release would be cool.
That would be.
Yeah. And then maybe like throw our music videos on the end of it, like a music video compilation, mixed with, tour footage or some interviews and stuff like that. Maybe one day we will, but I thought about getting an old, like what I used to have, like a tape camera mini. It's like the mini VHS tape.
Yeah.
And grabbing one of those. I don't know if that's considered like vintage now on eBay. I don't know how much they were. I thought it could be cool to kind of just capture the stuff on tour that we do. And, most of it's boring, but, capturing the stuff at the venue and things like that. And
absolutely.
And make a little compilation of it. I think that could be cool. It's something we've talked about. So
it may be boring to you, but a lot of people love that stuff. Like when I was younger and I was dreaming about being a rock star on the road in the tour bus, I would eat that stuff up.
For sure.
If a band had that glimpse into their world, that just made them even more something I could get into,
Definitely. Yeah. Like Dimmu had a couple cool DVDs. Who else? Of course, Danzig, Typo. Bands like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that Typo, the After Dark, right?
Something like that. Yeah,
something like that.
Interviews in the park and stuff. It's
right,
like mixed.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah,
maybe one day.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. That'd be really cool to see. Well, Thomas, do you have any more questions for Scott?
I had a bunch, but I think we already covered everything that I had written down. So just kind of flowed naturally. Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, Scott, man, we're not going to keep you all day.
No problem. I enjoyed the talk.
Absolutely, brother. We really appreciate having you on what will be our first of many episodes to come. Cool. And I look forward to seeing you in Memphis.
Awesome.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And I hope to have you back on the show soon.
Yeah, for sure. Always willing to come back. I enjoyed the talk, and the more in-depth questions are always nicer to be asked rather than, how did the band start? Because that stuff's all over.
Yeah, who did your logo? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Cloak is a deeper band, so I think it's important for guys like you to actually understand that, and it's even a bonus that you guys related to a lot of it, and you're clearly studied on a lot of this stuff. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yes,
and I'd love to catch up with you in the future too. Maybe we could do a part 2.
Yeah, definitely. Just let me know.
Sure.
All right,
man. Well, thank you so much. You have a good day. Okay.
You too. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Thanks.